You are dehumanizing them because you're saying that they cannot act categorically. You're saying that they cannot look at the reality around them and act accordingly. So you will enforce the rules for them. You will tell them what to do because obviously you know how to avoid. You know how to avoid risk. You're unbelievably snobby, elitist in your bubble. And that is why you lost in Virginia. That is why you almost lost New Jersey. That is why Minneapolis voted against abolishing the police. You think you have a mandate, not only politically, but philosophically, on an innate level. You think that you are superior to others in the United States. It is not surprising. For the most part, people would say, well, Biden won the 2020 election, but if you paid a bit more attention, you would know that the Democrats had a pretty bad election. They lost many seats in the representatives. They almost lost the majority to Republicans. There were a lot of state legislatures who went red because the citizens of the United States do not like what is happening in their cities, in their towns, and they're taking action. The Democrats knew that they were going to have a tough time in 2021, 2022, when the midterms happened, and the 2024 election. We knew this. A lot of defund the police candidates, a lot of Democrats tried to remove themselves from the defund the police narratives, or the defund the police contention, because they were losing because of it. They were already losing because of the progressives. This didn't hit the news cycle though, because the big media and big tech and the progressive elite were celebrating, too busy celebrating Biden's victory. They even called it a mandate. Glenn Youngkin. He took over a Republican, a first-time candidate. And so in that sense, he sort of breathes that same Trumpian, I'm not here because I'm a politician, but I'm here for true reform sort of aura. Which I find interesting if you really look at Youngkin's gubernatorial run. He embodied Trumpian policies, but distanced himself from Trump himself. The Trumpian nastiness, which shows us, it essentially shows us a winner in a debate between those who believe that who believe in Trump policies but do not like the Trump demeanor, versus those who think the demeanor is necessary as well. We got that answer from November 2nd. And so it leads me to think that in 2024, and we can talk about this in a separate video, maybe a DeSantis run is better than a Trump run in 2024. Because part of the reason why McAuliffe lost is because Democrats weren't as motivated to vote they weren't as motivated to vote in 2021, not as much as in 2020. Trump mobilizes people, mobilizes Republicans, but it also mobilizes Democrats as well. Republicans took over the state of Virginia, and yeah, we're talking about a state that went to Biden by, I believe, 10 points, maybe more. In New Jersey, we expected Phil Murphy to have a very clean sweep. Instead, the Republican opponent, Ciattarelli, I wouldn't know because nobody thought he was going to run. He got pretty darn close to overthrowing Murphy's rule. In Minneapolis, the Minneapolitan, Is that what they call it? Minneapolis? Those who live in Minneapolis, Minneapolis, those who live in Minneapolis thought, hey, we're not going to abolish the police because we've already seen the destruction of our city because the police budget was cut so much already. So why will we want to abolish the police for social workers? The people of Minneapolis said no to a measure that would abolish the police. And Buffalo, the mayor, the people of Buffalo elected, was a moderate. They kept the incumbent instead of voting for a Democratic socialist. And in New York City, although we knew Eric Adams was going to win the mayoral race, Eric Adams, somebody who focuses on the fundamentals, political pragmatism, which is what Youngkin sort of campaigned on as well, he won the New York City's mayoral election. This is not surprising. Not surprising for the reasons that I told you in the beginning, just like 5 minutes ago. We knew this was going to happen from the 2020 election, from the results that we got in 2020. Democrats lost for a multitude of reasons. Their policies are too radical. That's for one. You can probably just put a period right there. But I wanted to make this video because the first thing I thought when I saw Youngkin get on that stage is Democrats lost because they're snobby. I go to school with these people. I walk the same streets as these people. You lost because you're a goddamn snobby. The Democrat Party is a party of elites. It is not the party of the working class. It's not the party of ordinary Americans. In their elitist bubble, because they're unable to embody the hero archetype to become something, because they already lived in a very developed part of the country, there's no need to continue developing New York City when New York City just is. It does not need to become anymore. They decide to call themselves the victims. And then they call you the racists. They call you racist because of what? Because you don't want your kids to be taught racial essentialism? Racial essentialism. They call you racist for that. And I thought, honestly, that Americans wouldn't have the guts to stand up. I truly thought that. Many people just refuse to stand up. Many people refuse to speak up and to say no. Well, Americans said their piece November 2nd. I was overhearing a conversation with one of my fellow classmates over at Brooklyn Tech and a stranger who wanted to talk about vaccine mandates. And I mentioned to him that when cases rose in Florida, people decided to put their masks on. Because people make risk assessments, and if they feel a danger to their lives, they will act accordingly. And you know what he said? He said, Floridians? Haha, risk aversion? Floridians don't know how to avoid risk. Are you kidding me? And there's this whole meme about the Florida man and whatnot. And those memes are funny. But on a more serious level, you just dehumanize Floridians. And you may be saying, Daniel, you're overthinking that. Obviously, he's not dehumanizing Floridians. He's just making fun of them. But no, that's exactly what he is doing. Humans have the ability to act categorically. Humans have the ability to view the world around them and to act independently in that world. There are a few things that we acquiesce to reality. There are a few things that we do that isn't independent of reality, that we do because reality acts in a certain way. For example, you can't survive without food, and so because you are hungry, you go to eat. And for my philosophy people, you may realize I'm speaking a bit Kantian here. But humans have the ability to act categorically. We have the ability to act independently. We have the ability to view the world in a slightly different way, not just perform Y because X happened, but to look at all the variables, and instead of doing Y because X happened, instead I'll do Z. And that's why we respect each other as human beings, and that's why we respect our risk assessments. That's why when somebody wants to skydive, when somebody wants to ride a motorcycle instead of drive a car maybe, why somebody wants to spend more money on one thing but spend less money on another thing, prioritize certain things worth their time, we let them do that. Because we know that as human beings, we are able to act independently, categorically. So when you make fun of Floridians and say, no, they can't do risk evasion, they can't avoid risk, they're unable to do just something about Floridians. They're just unable to do it. You are dehumanizing them because you're saying that they cannot act categorically. You're saying that they cannot look at the reality around them and act accordingly. So you will enforce the rules for them. You will tell them what to do because obviously you know how to avoid risk. You're unbelievably snobby, elitist in your bubble. And that is why you lost in Virginia. That is why you almost lost New Jersey. That is why Minneapolis voted against abolishing the police. You think you have a mandate, not only politically, but philosophically, on an innate level. You think that you are superior to others in the United States. And people have finally said, enough. No. I do not want my child. I have 2 eyes. I have 2 ears. I saw my child learning these things. I heard my child come home and ask me if I'm evil because I'm white. And I have 1 mouth. And so I will tell you, I will say, stop teaching my child this. And you know what the response is from these Democrats? Do you know what the response is from these elites? You're racist. You're a neo-Nazi. I'm happy Americans are standing up. You better stand up before it's too late. These people think they have a mandate to control your lives. We didn't even need to get into policy. We didn't need to. I don't need to talk about the merits of having a strong police department. I didn't need to talk about the benefits of lowering taxes. I didn't need to talk about racial essentialism. There's no point in getting into policy if the people you're debating with on a fundamental level think that you are inept as a human being, that you are lower than human. That should be enough for Americans to vote on. I know you're going to vote on the economy, on what happened in Afghanistan. I know you'll vote on those things, on critical race theory in schools, on lower taxes. But if there's anything that should drive you to the polls, other than the food on your table becoming more expensive, the fact that these people do not even view you as human, that they do not think that you have the capacity to act as a human in the sense that you can act categorically, that you can avoid risk, you can make risk assessments.